This is the Peugeot 3008. Like its sibling, the 5008, it's a car that's transformed from MPV into SUV. So now, in its second generation, it's got sharp looks, a flash interior, and a decent lineup of engines to choose from too. But how does it compare to other family SUVs like the Nissan Qashqai and Seat Ateca? That's what we're going to find out in this video. And don't forget, if you want to buy a 3008 or any other new car, go to whatcar.com, where you can find the best deals on every new car. Now, if you remember the previous 3008, you probably remember that it was a bit of a frumpy looking people carrier. But this new 3008 is clearly very different. So these are the key changes in its styling. Well, it's longer than before, 80mm longer in fact, and the distance between the rear and the front wheels is 62mm longer. The grille is larger and more upright, and the bonnet is flatter too. The A-pillars and the windscreen are less raked, and the waistline's higher. And the end result is quite plainly a family SUV, but it's a pretty stylish and classy looking one, with a floating roof and chrome touches used to good effect. But it's not just the outside that's had a huge overhaul in its design, because inside as well, it gets Peugeot's new iCockpit. Now, we're quite used to Peugeot's latest interior design, but even still, the 3008 feels like it has the interior of a motor show concept car. So there's plenty of plush plastics around, and you won't appreciate it now, but there's some LED lights that provide some ambient lighting at night. And there's also some quirky touches, like this fabric-wrapped dashboard here, and the piano key shortcut buttons, and the chrome effect detailing, as well as these cloth inserts, really give this interior a big premium feel. And it's all impressive build quality too, so this really is one of the best interiors in the class. Now, these small Peugeot steering wheels caused quite a stir when they first came in the 208 and 2008, and in those cars, actually quite a lot of drivers complained that the small steering wheel obscured some of the views of the dial depending on your driving position. But Peugeot have spent some time fine-tuning it, and in the 3008 there's no such issues. But there's a good range of adjustment in the steering wheel, and wherever you put it, it shouldn't obscure your view of the driver display at all. So that digital driver display comes as standard, and as well as that, you get an infotainment system with DAB radio and Bluetooth. Now, this infotainment system, it's an 8-inch touchscreen that sits nice and high on the dashboard, so it means that when you're driving, your eyes don't have to move too far away from the road to operate it, and it's all within easy reach. Plus, you have these shortcut buttons too. However, it's not all good news. This infotainment system is pretty good for the class, but some of the sub-menus can be a bit confusing, and the icons for those sub-menus are a bit small as well. It's also annoying that you have to control everything through the touchscreen. So, for example, these shortcut buttons helpfully bring up the menus, but you can't actually control and select things with those buttons either. You have to do that through the touchscreen. And the most annoying thing about that is that even the aircon is done through the touchscreen too. All models also get smartphone mirroring with Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, or MirrorLink, and that's really great that it gets that as standard. Some of the optional features you can choose are some wireless phone charging and a premium sound system as well. There's nothing wrong with the driving position. As we said, there's plenty of adjustment in the steering wheel. The seats have a good range of adjustment too. You have really good visibility out the front. These A-pillars aren't too thick, so don't obscure your view at junctions, and the view out the back is reasonable as well. And the storage that's on offer, that's good too. So starting with the door bins down here, they're a good size. They're not particularly wide, but they are quite long and still enough for a water bottle. And then on the center console, pop this open here and it reveals an absolutely enormous storage bin that's incredibly deep and wide. And also a handy feature is that it's got a light inside. So that means that if you've got something hidden right at the bottom of it, down the mine, then it will still light it up and you'll be able to get your keys out of there somehow. You also have this kind of tray thing on the top of it, which just helps keep your phone or keys within easy reach, but still hidden in this storage bin down here. So in front of that, you've got two cup holders and you've got another kind of storage tray next to the gear selector here. So that's for your phone or for the keys to the car. And right at the front of the center console, you've got another storage area, which in this model has the wireless phone charging because that's been added as an optional extra. And you've also got a USB port and a 12-volt socket. The glove box isn't a particularly brilliant size. Space in the back isn't quite as good as it is in the front. Now, if you have a panoramic sunroof fitted, which we do, then it greatly reduces the headroom on offer. So with it fitted, it is a little bit cramped. However, if you don't have a panoramic sunroof, then even if you're over 6 foot tall, you'll still be pretty comfortable in the back of the 3008. Legroom is reasonable, but not quite as generous as cars like the Volkswagen Tiguan and the Seat Ateca. Those two cars are also wider, so that means if you're sitting 3 passengers in the back, then you'll be more comfortable in those cars. However, one good thing about the 3008 is it has a relatively flat floor. So if you're sat in the middle seat, you don't end up having your feet right up by your knees just to try and fit in the back. So that's good. Other things you need to know. Well, there is a door bin back here as well, which is a good size, enough for a water bottle. You have a storage net behind the driver's seat. You've also got these air vents so that you can keep cool or get warm, and a 12-volt socket. Underneath the 12-volt socket, you've got a very small tray for one key or a receipt. And then underneath all of that, you have a very handy 3-pin plug. You also have these ISOFIX mounts on the outer 2 rear seats. And if you pull this down, you have 2 cup holders and a ski hatch which you can open from this side and gives you access to the boot. Folding rear seats are standard, but these are split 60-40 rather than the more convenient 40-20-40 arrangement that some rivals can offer. Handy quick release levers next to the tailgate opening make it easy to fold the backrest down, and they lie completely flat once lowered. Unlike the Volkswagen Tiguan, the rear seats don't slide or recline, but the front passenger seat can fold flat. Now, the boot. It's not the biggest in its class, but it's still a reasonable size. So that means you'll be able to fit a buggy or a couple of large suitcases in the back, no problem at all. It's also got some handy features in it, which we'll talk you through now. So you can see it's got some tethering hooks at the front and at the back. It's also got a 12-volt socket here. You've also got these levers which lower the rear seats and these handy storage pockets on the side. It's also got an adjustable boot floor, so you can take it out and make it a little bit lower down there, or if you put it in its highest setting back there, then it means there's no lip on entry, and it also leaves you some space underneath to put in extra things, unless of course you have what we have, which is a spare wheel under there, and that takes up quite a lot of room. But another incredibly handy and ingenious really feature in the back of the 3008 is these spring-loaded catches on the top here, and it basically means you can put the adjustable boot floor up like that, it will hold it in place, and it means you have both hands free to load things into the bottom of the boot, and then you can push it back down, back into place. But how does the Peugeot 3008 stack up financially? Is it good value? These are the key things you need to know about buying and owning a 3008. This isn't the cheapest family SUV in its class, but it's very well equipped compared to its rivals. Its residual values are impressive too. Over 3 years, it'll hold on to its value better than an equivalent Hyundai Tucson and Skoda Karoq. If you're a high mileage driver, then you should look at the blue HDI 130 for its impressive fuel economy. But for private and company car buyers, they are probably going to be better off with the PureTech 130. All 3008s get dual zone climate control and rear parking sensors, as well as Apple CarPlay, Android Auto and MirrorLink. Our favourite trim is Allure, which adds blind spot monitoring, lane keeping assist, high beam assist, sat-nav, interior ambient lighting, power fold mirrors, front and rear parking sensors, a rear view camera and a folding front passenger seat. Peugeot's reliability record isn't particularly brilliant. In our latest reliability survey, it finished 24th out of 31 manufacturers, but the 3008 did much better than the brand. In its class, it was second only to the Kia Sportage. The 3008 got the full 5-star verdict from safety experts Euro NCAP. That's in part thanks to its standard 6 airbags and active safety features. Blind spot monitoring, a speed limit display and lane keep assist are all standard on Allure trim upwards. Plus, most impressively, automatic emergency braking is standard. There's a simple lineup of 4 engines in the 3008, and that's 2 petrols and 2 diesels. Of the petrols, we'd say that the 1.2 litre PureTech 130 is the pick of the range. And it's the best because even though it sounds like it might be quite a small engine for a big car like this, actually, because it's turbocharged, then it's surprisingly peppy and really nice to rev out as well. So plenty of power even in an SUV like this. If you do go for the PureTech 180, then of course you do get more power and better performance, but it comes at a cost. So that engine is more expensive. And really, we'd say that the PureTech 130 is so impressive that you probably don't need anything more than that. For the diesels, well, the blue HDI 130 is extremely economical and also it pulls really easily. And even with a fully loaded car, it really has no trouble getting up to motorway speeds and offering plenty of overtaking opportunity as well. If you do want to stretch your budget even further and get the blue HDI 180 diesel, then of course, just like with the petrol, you get better performance and it is a quicker engine too. But while the fuel economy is still decent, buying it outright will cost you much more than the cheaper diesel engine. So we'd stick with the blue HDI 130. We're in the PureTech 180 and it also has a sport button, which if you press, makes the engine sound rather hilarious and very fake, but also quite surprisingly loud for an SUV like this. So, I mean, it's not pure driver enjoyment, but I suppose it's nice having a sport mode, and it does sharpen up the throttle response and adds a bit more weight to the steering as well, and obviously brings this kind of crazy engine sound too. There's only one suspension setup on the 3008, and on the whole, it's pretty good. Its ride is not quite as soft as a Nissan Qashqai's, but it does take the edge off ridges and expansion joints that the firmer Seat Ateca thuds over. The 3008 handles perfectly adequately, but not exceptionally. So the steering is well weighted and fairly precise, apart from on the motorway, it can feel a little vague on the straight ahead. And the small steering wheel as well seems to add a slight touch of nervousness into the car's response. But aside from that, it's fairly sure-footed and easy to drive. However, if you want a family SUV that's slightly more exciting to drive, then we'd recommend looking at something like the Seat Ateca, which is firmer, perhaps not quite so comfortable, but it has better steering and better body control as well. As for refinement, a Nissan Qashqai is quieter inside, but the 3008 is still reasonably refined, and the engines are nicely hushed. The 3008 is stylish, practical, good to drive, and well equipped. It's one of the best family SUVs that you can buy. And for much more on it, go to whatcar.com, where you can read our extended written review of it and all of its key rivals. And if you want to buy a new car, don't forget Whatcar's the place for that as well. So when you're on whatcar.com, go to the new car buying section, and hopefully you'll be able to find out exactly how much money we can save you off your next new car. Remember, it could be thousands. And if you've enjoyed this video, then please give us a like. If you have any questions about the car, then leave a comment. And don't forget to subscribe, because we'll be doing lots of videos like this with group tests and first looks as well.